things playing out by way of earthquakes, volcanoes, activity along those lines, Nat, here. Very Matthew 24-ish, wars and rumors of wars and things of that nature. Kind of smacks of that stuff there, but nonetheless, just some of the stuff we're going to get to here on the broadcast here this morning. So, let me see here. Let me get that updated here real quick, and bear with me one moment. All right, that being said, let me see here. Let me get things going here real quick. We are live, folks, by the way. Let's see. Let's get you situated there. And there we go. All right, so some of the stuff we're going to get to on the broadcast here this morning. Again, we just got done covering the Steve Quayle sitting down with Greg Hunter here. Convulsionomics, the coined term. Steve Quayle warns of a freedom-ending plan for the world here. Obviously, banks shut down in the midst of melees, any sort of crap that may rise up here. Who knows? The No King stuff, Nat, may be playing petty cake and that we saw here a couple weeks back compared to what may be coming. Of course, Antifa and that in the mix. Who knows? We'll see. Also, from there, Texas sues Tylenol maker over allegedly omitting evidence of autism in their link to marketing. Ken Paxton and company down in Texas net. Taking it to Tylenol here. We'll get into the details. Also talk about corporate layoffs spike as companies prepare for tariff shocks. I also get into OpenAI must face copyright infringement claim from authors, court rules. We'll get into the details on that. All these large language models, Net, where are they getting their data from? How much infringement is going on? Are people being compensated? Chances are no. They just thieve it as if they own it. What about copyright rules? Well, we'll get into that. I'll also talk about these states lose most if federal food aid runs out. Again, talking about SNAP benefits. Who all is affected, go state by state here. I'll also talk about food lines are already growing longer all over America. Yeah, things are bad. Not the economy that we're being told is actually taking place. No, Wall Street is not representative of Main Street. We've highlighted that numerous times net on the broadcast here. Also, Google deal with Nextera will restart Iowa nuclear plant in 2029. So more deals net being made. Folks net being powered up by former power plants net that had been scuttlebutted net in the past. We'll get into that. Also, showing up in droves, Gen Z trades graduation caps for hard hats. And yeah, obviously there's going to be a shortage of skilled trades. A lot of the boomer types net going to be retiring and not a lot of backfill. There's going to be holes for electricians and plumbers and construction workers and the like. And obviously, if anybody is paying attention to the upper echelons of higher education these days, look what they're churning out. Is it worth it? Is it worth your dollars to just become a Starbucks barista and about $100,000 in debt? Probably not. Mapping where non-citizens receive the most food stamps. So it's not just the Americans here, folks, that get said SNAP benefits. All these illegals in that have poured across. Some states apparently hand out benefits to them as well. Oh, did you think it wasn't the case? Of course it is. And France proposes national Bitcoin reserve. NEAT wants to buy 2% of Bitcoin supply. We'll get into the details there. And also talk about Trump says NVIDIA Blackwell AI chips will be on agenda in talks. Of course, the talks net having concluded here. We got a little bit of a kick out net here this morning as to what all that entailed and agreements, et cetera, et cetera. Also, Boeing hit with a $4.9 billion charge after another 777X delay pushes plane debut into 2027. Talk about that here in just a bit. And Cracker Barrel shares are down about 32% this year, following their, century's worst brand snafu, if you want to call it that. They tried to Bud Light themselves, and that did not play out so well. We'll get into details there here in just a bit as well. That being said, let's take a look at the weather, see what's doing across the country here this morning, and out to the left coast net we go here this morning. Oops, get that brought up here. Out to the left coast we go, and it looks like, at least by way of radar, not much doing up and down the left coast net here this morning. Pretty quiet, and it looks like across about the back third of the country out west. Not much doing by way of radar. Got a little scatter net coming down through Minnesota, east side of the Dakotas, down into Nebraska, down through that corridor there. Otherwise, looks like the bulk of the activity net is out east and coming through the Ohio River Valley, heading out to the upper New England area, a little bit down into Kentucky, Tennessee, and stretching across those areas there. We'll get into the precip side here in just a moment. Over on the Pacific side, it looks like the remains of, what was the name of it over here? I already forgot the name of the hurricane and that was hanging out down here. Looks like that has since dissipated in the last 24 hours or so. And Melissa, apparently, having recongregated after going across the islands here. Yesterday we showed after it hit Jamaica, kind of dissipated and went over to islands there and kind of reconstituted itself, I guess. Over on the Atlantic side here, it looks like our projected path net well off the shores of the U.S. here, mainland. But looks like that is going to be taking a straight line out to sea here, which is good. I'm sure Jamaica is probably going to have some damage to recover from in that here, having seen at least a little bit coming out of the islands in that here just in the last day or so. And any others on the water? I don't think so. It looks like everybody else net on the Atlantic side looking pretty good. No major spinners net on the water and that here outside of Melissa here. And let's see, by way of precip here this morning, again, out to the west, not much doing. West Coast net looking pretty good. High pressure dome net across much of the west and upper plains, and looks like down to the south looking pretty good here as well. Low scatter net coming across Minnesota, west side, upper northern parts here, and the east side of North Dakota. Maybe just a little passing drizzle or rain shower net coming through there. Otherwise, the folks net out east and through the Ohio River Valley, it looks like the bulk of that from Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, up into New England and that here this morning. Picking up a little bit of rain, 5/6 or so of an inch. 2, 3, 4, 5, and various select spots there, and over toward New Jersey, over to Maryland, Delaware area through that corridor. Looks like picking up a couple 6, 7/10 or so of an inch. Down to the south, it looks like a little bit of rain, and down toward West Virginia, a couple 2, 3/10, and even some rain stretching down to the east side of Tennessee, maybe the northern parts of Alabama and Georgia in that here this morning as part of that system as well. And then again, we see Melissa hanging out here, and that's kind of an interesting line of storms in that there. Quite a bit of rain and that being put down in some of those areas in that there as well here this morning. But again, there's the rain situation, and by way of temperatures, looks like down to Florida we go. Coming in right around the mid 70 degree mark or so here to start your morning. To the north, looks like in the 50s net there, so about a 15 or so degree swing top to bottom of Florida here this morning. Coming up through the eastern seaboard, it looks like Georgia through the Carolinas and on up into Virginia. It looks like in the 50s and 60s both. Looks like to the north of that, looks like by the time you get up toward Maryland, New Jersey, up into up around Pennsylvania area, looks like still hanging in the 60s, and to the north of that start to tail off into the 40s net as that front works its way through. And it looks like the likes of New York up into Vermont, New Hampshire, up to Massachusetts, Maine, up through that corridor, all in the 40s net here this morning. 40s net to north and northern parts of New York here this morning. 40s net back to the west. Looks like 40s net coming across much of Pennsylvania. Some 50s net more toward the east side of the state. Looks like West Virginia coming down through there in the 40s and 50s net here this morning. And by the time you work your way back down toward the Gulf of America here this morning, looks like going to be in the upper 50s net from Florida, coming across to Alabama, over toward Mississippi, and back toward Louisiana, still hanging in the mid upper 50s. And by the time you get down toward the Houston area of Texas net, going to be still in the 50s net here this morning, 60, low 60 degree mark or so, down toward the southern tip of Texas here on the morning. And by the time you work your way toward the north side of the state, you're in the upper 30s, low 40s net here this morning. So just about a 25, 30 degree swing top to bottom of Texas here this morning. Pushing to the north of that through Oklahoma, Kansas, up through that corridor in the 40s, 30s net. By the time you work your way up into the North Dakota way, looks like in the 30s net here this morning. 30s net coming across into Minnesota, and looks like some 40s net by the time you get down toward Wisconsin, down toward the Milwaukee area. Looks like maybe around the 50 degree mark in that here to start your Thursday. Back to the west, though. If you're in the east side of Montana, it looks like in the 30s net here this morning. Back toward the west, though, it looks like in the 20s, coming down through the west portions of Montana, down through much of Idaho. Looks like some 20s net down through there into Wyoming, all through that corridor there in the blue. And the folks net up into Washington State, 30s net to the east side of the state, some 20s net in the mix up in the elevations. Looks like some 40s net back toward the coastal areas there, about the same in that down in Oregon, 40s net off the coastal areas there. Looks like some 20s and 30s net off to the east side of the state, and by the time you get down toward the northern portions of California here this morning, the 30s net coming across top end of the state, 40s and 50s net, more toward the west coast. And by the time you get down toward the southern part of Cali here this morning, looks like you're going to be in the mid 60-degree mark in that here this morning. And about the same for the folks in that down into the southwestern portions of Arizona. Northeastern portion of Arizona, on the other hand, going to be in the 30s. So quite a swing in temperatures net from top northeast portion of Arizona down toward the southwest portions of the state there. Looks like about the same net for the folks in New Mexico as well, in the 30s net northern part of the state through there. And it looks like, but we have cloud cover. Got plenty of clouds net coming in here off the coast areas net of the Pacific Northwest. Starting to creep in down through Canada and off the waters there. And it looks like across much of the west and plains net should see some fairly open skies. Got that high pressure dome net cut through there. It looks like coming across the very top end of the country from Montana, coming across into Minnesota, Wisconsin area. Got some clouds net creeping in through that area there, down through the Midwest. And there we see that system net coming across the southeast into the northeast net here this morning, on up into New England here this morning. Looks like you guys should be under clouds net here for the better part of the day. Maybe some breaks in the clouds net more toward the south. If you're down through the Carolinas, down to Georgia, and then Florida, looks like looking to be fairly good net here on the morn. Otherwise, looks like the folks net back to Texas, down through the southwest net, going to see some fairly sunny skies net here on the day. And that's a quick take a look at the weather here on this Thursday. But we have power outages net here this morning. Looks like we got about 62,000 folks without power across much of the country here, about 10,000 net over to Pennsylvania. Looks like maybe some of those storms net maybe starting to knock some power out over in those areas there. Got about 8,000 or so in Texas, another 7,300 or so down in Ohio. Pennsylvania, looks like. Let's see what sort of counties net we got lit up here. It's tough to tell on this map here, but looks like maybe Susquehanna as well as Wayne County is net up in the far northeastern portion of the state there, maybe impacted by some of those storms as they work their way through. So hopefully they get you guys' power restored and quickly here on the morning. And from there, over to the fire and smoke maps net we go. Looks like folks net up in Canada still got fires net to contend with up in those parts there. That in motion here. And looks like folks net west of Alberta and to the west of that, north and west of Vancouver. Plenty of fires net to contend with up there, and north of Calgary, it looks like. And down across the border, it looks like down to Washington State, Idaho, Oregon, all through that area, kind of looking like popcorn in that, with all the hot spots net flaring up there. May see some poor air quality and dense smoke in some of those select areas over the next 24, 48 hours. 50-some fires net down south of Portland, another 40 or so there, and quite a few up around Seattle to the east, and far east over clear into Idaho in that here this morning. Down into California, it looks like northern part of the state there. Still get about 30, 40 fires net north of Sacramento. Another dozen or so down east of San Francisco and between Fresno and LA. Got a couple, 2, 3 fires. Another couple, 2, 3, 6 or so down south of San Diego, down in those parts here this morning. But otherwise, looks like coming across southeast. Again, looks like a lot of those having been tamped down. Still got those storms and weather net coming across there. May keep some of that at bay, at least for the moment. And it looks like folks net down in Florida got about a couple dozen, maybe another dozen or so up around the border with Florida and Georgia through there. And back to the west of that, through Mississippi, Louisiana, looks like got half dozen or so through there. Maybe a couple hot spots net over the east side of Texas net, off to the east of Dallas, over toward the Louisiana border through that corridor. So here's a quick take a look at that, and over to the markets we go here on the morning. Futures drop as Trump and G Summit underwhelms, Mag 7 earnings disappoint. And of course, that's kind of a contrary-wise headline compared to what is coming out of Trump's mouth in that here this morning, but nonetheless.